So how long should you be training for? So today I want to go through some kind of information about how long you should be training for and how long your rest period should be. I'm going to be referencing sports like dance, MMA, parkour, and gymnastics. Okay, I've just got my laptop here with a few notes. So, of course, these sports are all generalized sports, meaning they do many things. You know, tennis is a very specialized sport where you have a racket and you have one goal. With dance, with gymnastics, with parkour, with MMA, you have so many different aspects of movement and approaches to fitness. You know, MMA, you've got the ground game, you've got wrestling, you've got the grappling, you've got, clinch. There's so much there. Dance, you can literally move in any way you want. Parkour, there are so many different ways to move. You can flip, you can do pure parkour, you can do A to B. You know what I mean? There are so many ways to move, and this is very specific and kind of can be applied very well to the movement we do on this channel and the community that I'm talking to right now. So, first thing I want to say is there are people on either side of these kind of scales that I'm going to give you. You know, I'm going to tell you these, dancers train this long for this many days. There are people who train less and people who train more. What I want to say to you is there are athletes who are amazing and they train very little time, or athletes who can train an incredibly long time and still be fine without much recovery. And the reason for this, it can be so many things. It can be nutrition, it can be mindset, it can be recovery, it can be their upbringing. So it's very specific to the person, but this is a more generalized kind of open, idea of how long your rest period should be, how long you can train for. Now, the first thing I want to say is it has to be specific to you. If you're looking to train any sport, any practice, then the best results you're going to get is if you can train over a long period of time, if it can be sustainable. So there is no point in saying, okay, I'm going to start training 3 days a week, 5 hours every day, if you can't maintain that and if you can't make it sustainable. It has to be specific to you. So whether you can train an hour every 3 days, that's the most you can do. That is enough. That is the most you can do, the most you can fit in. Of course, you may be able to push back that meeting, wake up earlier, but if that is not sustainable, if that does not make your life happy, then it is not an approach you should really take. You want things to be sustainable, okay? So that is the first thing. You should be training however long you can. How much, make it doable, make it realistic, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is just general kind of workout, rest periods and stuff like that. So when we're talking just in the gym doing weights, whether that be calisthenics or, the weights, the resistance exercises. So the rest period should be around 24 to 72 hours. And it's quite depending on how you work out and what you're doing. So if you're new at working out, then you're going to want a longer rest period. And if you've done a full body workout, you're going to want to lean more towards a 72 hours, maybe 48-hour time period. However, if you're hitting different muscle groups and you're a more experienced lifter, it's going to be shorter. The longer you lift and train for, the shorter you need your rest kind of period to be your recovery period, meaning you can train more often. So you're talking maybe 3 to 4 times a week for the advanced lifters, potentially even up to 5. Now, what's important to note is the bro kind of way of lifting out where it's, of working out where it's like, okay, arm day today, leg day tomorrow, back day that day. It's not optimal because this was built on the idea that these bodybuilders are using steroids. And when you use steroids, you have an increased rate of protein synthesis, which means the protein kind of recovers and you build more muscle faster, meaning you can work out more. However, this is not sustainable, nor is it realistic for natural average lifters. Okay, so you're looking between 24 to 72 hours, depending on what you do. Now, keep in mind, if you do powerlifting or big lifts, big deadlifts and heavy things, 1 rep maxes, it's going to take a while for your central nervous system to recover. So this may take anywhere from, a few days up to a week or two, depending on how big of a lift it was for you and kind of where you are in your training. Okay, so now let's move on to dancers. So dance, what an amazing sport, right? So generally, rest is going to be 2 days per week for dancers on the kind of on season, when they're on season, performing, getting ready for a show or doing this or doing that. generally it's going to be around 2 days of rest per week. This can be 2 days together or 2 days split, okay? So it's around 5 days of work, and during those days, it's going to be 3 to 7 hours of training. Now, the thing with dance, the reason why they can go 3 to 7 hours, again, it's a generalized practice. So they're not just drilling, in tennis, you're just drilling just one kind of area of your body, and you get some tennis elbow. It's literally called tennis elbow because you're constantly using that joint. Now, with dance, it's very generalized. So you're using your whole body in so many different ways, so you're not necessarily going to sustain specific kind of overuse injuries like tendonitis because you're doing so much everywhere, okay? And it's quite cardiovascular based, unless of course you're doing something like breakdancing or something, but general dance, it's more cardiovascular based than it is resistance, 1 or 2 reps, because you're dancing. It's going to take a while to dance. You've got a whole sequence to go through. So you're talking 2 days 2 days of rest. Off season, keep it light, 4 days a week, maybe keeping it light, keeping it casual. Off season can be up to 4 weeks. And now, some athletes, when it comes to any kind of sport, a lot of athletes will do is they'll train intense for 1 or 2 days a week, and then for the other 3 to 4, they will kind of keep it casual, keep it light, and not push past that kind of aerobic window when it comes to things like dance and sports like that. So we've got that, and yeah, just one kind of note to make is up to 2 weeks of rest for things like dance. 2 weeks of complete rest is fine. After about 2 weeks is when you start experiencing a reduction in kind of your aerobic capacity and your technique, okay? So that is dance right there. So now we're going to talk about MMA. MMA is a great, obviously, martial art practice because it is a generalized practice. Fighting is quite generalized anyway, but when you put everything into one, MMA, mixed martial arts, it becomes incredibly generalized. But we're talking around 5 days of training per week, 3 to 5 hours per day. Now, this is generalized. Like I said, you've got boxing, you've got the ground game with, wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You're going to be running for your cardiovascular exercises. You're going to be doing mobility work. You're going to be doing strength work. So 3 to 5 hours, 5 days a week is fairly average for someone who's reasonably serious about the training, okay? Now, what you have to keep in mind with all these sports, a large part of it is going to be the recovery. The recovery is so important for these because, of course, you are training 3 to 5 hours. And, of course, it's not just lifting for 3 to 5 hours because that just would not be smart. It's not really doable for someone who's natural. But when it comes to generalized sports that has, quite a lot of aerobic exercise as well as a little bit of resistance, obviously MMA has more resistance exercise than general dance practice, and so therefore, you'll be training probably a little bit shorter times each day. But yeah, a lot of it is going to be with the mobility work and the recovery work. It's very important. No serious athlete is going in training 5 days a week for 3 to 5 hours and just going home and chilling. They're recovering. Do you know what I mean? With their nutrition, physically, with rolling out the muscles and massages and just stuff like that. Now, parkour, something I have quite a good background in. So generally, we want to be practicing 3 to 5 days per week, 3 to 7 hours a day. Now, this also includes walking between the spots, resting at the spots. So maybe it is somewhere between 2 to 4 hours of actual movement and practice. It's quite a bit of a range, but there are people, of course, who train every day of the week. However, I must stress this is not sustainable for the average parkour user, the average parkour practitioner. So say you are, you're big on flow, low impact flow. 7 days a week might be sustainable for that because it's very similar to dance, low impact flow. However, if you're doing big jumps and big flips, 7 days a week is not long enough to recover. You want recovery periods of between 48 to 72 hours if you are doing those big jumps and big flips and drops. So, that's definitely it. 3 to 5 days a week, 3 to 7 hours of outdoors, moving about, resting between the spots, but around 2 to 4 hours of actual working parkour, in the actual days, in those days you're training. And gymnastics. Generally, it's 2 times per day, 2 to 3 hours in each session. So it's around 4 to 6 hours per day. And then you've got 3 to 4 times per week. Now, there have been studies demonstrating that 48 to 72 hours of rest is optimal for gymnasts. However, this was for, I believe, level 10 to 12 female gymnasts. So that may differ slightly depending, of course, the lower levels you get, the less rest you're going to need, potentially, because you're not doing as high level things. And of course, men may have a different recovery period of time, but that's a general kind of idea. So 48 to 72 hours of rest, but yeah, around 4 to 6 hours per day, 3 to 4 times a week. And of course, with all these practices, you're talking recovery, good nutrition, dedicated practice. These are serious practitioners. So whether you want to, if you are like me and you take a generalized practice, you take, a lot of things from the Ido Portal method, you take things from a lot of generalized practice, you tie it into one. If you're like me and you do that, then you want a kind of general mix of all of these. And that is looking about, maybe 4 days a week, between 3 and 5 hours of training per day. Now, this can be Floreo capoeira movement. It can be resistance exercises with your cardio, with your mobility, and with reaction time training. 3 hours can be quite short if you're doing all of that. You're talking, good rest periods, maybe splitting it, 2 days of work, 1 day rest, 1 day of work, 1 day rest. Of course, the 2 days next to each other don't have to be intense. You can do one intense, one more mobility and reaction time based. So it's very specific to that. Just make sure that you're not hammering your training every single day. Because if you're hammering your training, then your central nervous system will get tired. You will not be able to keep up the same level of kind of output day in, day out. Okay? Make sure you're recovering. Nutrition and, massage, foam rolling, stretching, mobility work is all so important if you're training at this high level. But you don't have to train at this high level. If you don't want to, if it's not sustainable for you, an hour a day, an hour every other day can be okay if you optimize your training well. You'll never reach those professional high levels, but you'll still be proficient at what you do. So let me know what you think. Let me know how long you train per day. Be interesting to have the discussion and see kind of what people are saying. But yeah, until next time, peace.